Welcome to day 2 of the Green Keto Fix. And today, we're going to talk about ketones. What are they? How do you test for them? And what's the ideal range to be in? Just to be clear, the Green Keto Fix is not medical advice and should not be used to supersede or replace any current medical treatment that you may be under. As you know, the goal of doing the Green Keto Fix is to turn your body into a fat-burning machine and replace glucose with fat as its preferred fuel source. By turning fat into our preferred fuel source, we're able to access and break down our body fat into ketones. And ketones are fatty chemicals that our body uses in the absence of glucose, which in all reality, it's a survival mechanism that we used when we went through periods of time when food sources were a little bit more sparse. You see, we didn't always have grocery stores readily available to go shop and make sure that we had food available every 2 to 3 hours to eat. Sometimes we went through periods of time with no food readily available. So our body's ability to utilize these ketones for fuel is what prevented us all from dying during these times. So unlike our ancestors, we do have access to food on a regular basis. So when we look at doing this keto plan, we're going to be strategically implementing our own fasting windows each day, along with the Green Keto plan, in order to start achieving the state where we are creating our own ketones. In ketosis, our blood sugar is going to stabilize and lower. We're going to have our insulin levels become more controlled, and we're going to improve our insulin sensitivities. In addition to that, we're also going to see major brain benefits, lifting of brain fog, improved cognition, improved digestion, creating a happy gastrointestinal tract, as well as improving our mitochondrial health, which improves our ability to rid our bodies of free radicals and rid our bodies of bad pathologies. Like I had said before, ketones are fatty chemicals that we create as we break down our own body fat. But what are the 3 ketones that we're going to be creating when we go into ketosis? The first of them is acetoacetic acid. The second is acetone. Yeah, like the nail polish remover. And the third is beta hydroxybutyrate, or beta hydroxybutyric acid. Those are going to be the 3 main ketones that we produce, but when we test our ketones, and especially if we're using the Keto Mojo, the most accurate ketone to test for is BHB, or beta hydroxybutyric acid. If you want to get into ketosis, a traditional keto diet recommends that you consume roughly 15 to 20% of your calories from protein, 75 to 80% of your calories from fat, and about 5% of your calories from carbohydrates. But let's face it, guys, are we going to sit and weigh and measure every single morsel of food that you consume during the day? Probably not. So using a Keto Mojo and the basic plan that we have outlined for you in the Green Keto Fix, it's going to allow you to fine-tune your body's ability to handle any level of carbohydrates and make adjustments as necessary without having to weigh, measure, and agonize over every gram of every food that you're eating. Before I show you how to test on your Keto Mojo, let me explain what the numbers mean. If you test somewhere between a 0.5 and a 1.5 on your Keto Mojo, that means that you're in mild nutritional ketosis, which is generally speaking where most of us are going to be during this 28-day challenge. Now, if you're someone who is struggling with chronic health issues, is someone who is dealing with long-term health issues due to type 2 diabetes, it might be ideal for you to get more into what we would consider a therapeutic range, which would be 1.5 to 3. In the 1.5 to 3 range, this is where we can see in the scientific studies autophagy happening, which is turning over new cells, and repair of damaged tissues, removal of bad pathogens, including skin tags, cysts, fibroids, and even cancer cells happen in the 1.5 to 3 range. So your Keto Mojo is going to come with your monitor. It's going to come with your lancing device. It's going to come with your lancets, which this is the top. They look like this when you get them. And you are going to, before you get started, make sure that your monitor is set up correctly and calibrated per the directions. Then make sure you turn your monitor on, and it's going to give you a signal that it's ready to accept the strip. It's going to be flashing at the top, which I know is hard to see. You can see that. There we go. And then I have my lancing device set up. I'm going to go ahead and stick my finger. I'm going to insert my test strip. Once you insert your test strip, it is going to tell you that it's ready. And there should be a large number at the top to let you know that it's ready to accept your sample. And then I submit my sample on the top of the strip, and you can see that right now my level is a 0.3. So I'm not quite into mild ketosis yet. I'm almost there. I'm just shy of being in mild nutritional ketosis. So the last question is, what can help you get into ketosis if you're having a hard time getting there outside of adjusting what you're eating? Well, utilizing your intermittent fasting windows and utilizing exogenous ketones are going to be the two things that we can use to help the body get into the ketogenic state a little bit easier. We recommend that each day you identify a fasting window. And all that means is the amount of time that lapses between your last meal the day prior and your first meal today. So for instance, I typically follow a 16-hour fasting window on a typical day, which means I may consume my last meal at 8 p.m. and then I may break my fast, if you will, at noon the next day. We can also implement a 24-hour fast maybe once or twice a week. Now keep in mind that your activity level during these times of fasting does need to be low, but if you are someone who chooses to do, like for instance, the 16-hour fast that I do, it is possible to work out fasted. You may want to explore exogenous ketones prior to your workouts if you're somebody who works out in the AM, and we'll talk more about that on our Q&A. Be sure to drop your questions for the weekly Q&A session in the private Facebook group so that we can answer as many of your questions as we can tonight. And make sure that when you get your Keto Mojo that you open your box up and you introduce yourself to your device, test and see where you're at. Make sure that you have identified your why and filled out your starting measurements. We should be rocking and rolling and forging ahead. And again, welcome to day 2 of the Green Keto Fix.